Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live stream of the Sports Refuge. I am Earl Holland, of course. And this week, my guest, Meredith Esguerra. She's been on the show before a few times, and you learned a little bit about her the last time. The episode is titled "In the Stars," and of course, we'll put that episode in the comments section just in case you guys want to reflect on that. But I'm glad to have you back. We have a couple of things, a couple of items that we're looking to do. Interestingly enough, we were talking about this. We're going to do an examination of my natal chart, in addition to have you do a bit of sports trivia as well. I'm glad to have you here, Meredith. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this. The first thing that we always ask everybody, especially now, because everything has been going a little bit crazy. How has everything been during the pandemic?
Like I've been spending a lot of time indoors, but it's like an introvert's dream. Like I don't like I have the perfect excuse not to see anybody, but it's not indicative of in any way of how I feel about people. It's just I like that I have my own space and I can kind of communicate with people from a distance. So it's wonderful.
I always wonder, would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I guess it depends. I'd like to think of myself as more of like a friendly introvert. So I definitely feel like I need to go spend time by myself to recharge. And I feel like that's what defines an introvert is like what type of situations recharge them, like being around people versus just being like having solace and solitude. So on the other hand, I also really enjoy people's presence. So like when I'm in the moment and I'm like around other friends, like I wouldn't count myself as antisocial. I definitely like being around people and seeing them happy and just enjoying their company. But I need time from that or time away from that to recharge my batteries.
Yeah, and the thing is, for me, I always call myself a recovering extrovert or a recovering introvert. That is,
Okay.
and yeah, it's because that for years I could be by myself, and being around people was draining. But I think the older I got, and the more of that habit I broke, I used to think I was normally shy, but honestly, maybe it was I maybe had issues with certain people that and certain personalities clash, but other than that, I think I'm fairly affable. I can deal with people. I can handle people. And honestly, I think as a conversation and social gathering goes along, I actually think I get a little bit stronger. But I don't know if I would call myself a true extrovert. I mean, of course, there's always the time you're sitting back and examining, looking at people, maybe trying to read people. I don't consider myself a type of person that reads people. I go from the mindset of, I guess, trust but verify.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like extroversion and introversion are more of like a spectrum rather than a black or white type of thing. So it seems like a lot of people kind of fall in the middle, and and I feel like a lot of people also conflate introversion with being antisocial, and that's not really the case. Like I think it's just like those are separate functions, like being liking people and also just liking being alone in order to recharge your batteries are mutually exclusive types of things. So and then you I think you also touched on another thing, which is just being sure you're around the right friends. So sometimes we just don't choose the types of situations that we're put in. Like I think it's like we end up around certain people, and then we might feel like an initial attraction to them, um, that like that spark of like this person could be like a really good potential friend or partner for me or something. And as you get to know those people better, then you kind of see like where you're more compatible or not compatible. So there's like it's like a multifaceted issue. Like there's the compatibility thing, whether or not like you can only handle social interactions in large doses or small doses, and like if you genuinely um, are like somebody that doesn't like to be in social situations. So like all of those three things like are interacting at once.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. It's interesting. You're just talking about being around people. We had a discussion. Well, we had a group Zoom call last weekend with
Zoom
a few
calls.
friends. Oh yeah, a
Okay.
few friends. Oh yeah, a few friends, and we ended up having the discussion about a few things. We were just talking about. Um, well, we were just talking about all different types of things, vacations and stuff, because there's hardly anywhere to go during a pandemic, and except you know staycations were the idea, living the dream, don't have to go anywhere. Working from home was a great idea initially. Get to work from home, don't have to go anywhere, don't actually have to dress up, don't have to deal with traffic until you've done it for almost a year. That's a whole different story there. But interesting, the conversation ended up going to a wild goose chase over the Viennetta ice cream that was returning.
Oh
So
yeah, I'm like really excited about that actually because I used to feel like that was the epitome of bouginess in my like early childhood. And like I think it's just akin to like ice cream cake and I'm just waiting for the like I feel apprehensive about like this fact that I put it on this pedestal and then like when I actually buy it, it's just going to be a normal frozen ice cream thing.
it'll be no better than getting something from Carvel.
Yeah, I'm sure that.
Yeah, just without the fancy looks of what Cookie Puss or whatever the other Carvel ice creams
Well,
that
I
were.
feel like the nostalgia adds like 10 taste points, like but I already have an idea of how it tastes in my head. Like I feel like I vaguely remember that there's like this crunchy chocolate layer or something, and then like it was sandwiched between like ice cream, and it kind of looked like tiramisu, but it was fancier. So I already have this expectation of like all the feelings it's supposed to evoke in me and stuff like that. And like, what if it? I'm pretty sure it's gonna fall short of that because like our idea of something is like always far removed from like the reality of what something is. If like.
Yeah. I always feel like things like Viennetta, that's like the upper crusty type foods like Grey Poupon and Fancy Feast for Cats and oh, the plantar all fruit where everybody's at the country club and the guy goes with the real country voice. Can you please pass the jelly? And just makes everybody faint because of his unrefinedness. And it's crazy to think about how such high esteem that we put certain foods as opposed to other ones where other ones are just, empty, a bunch of empty calories and it's trash food beyond, there's a lot of things that we can consider trash food, but people still like it anyway. But I honestly can't say I've ever had a Viennetta.
That's crazy. I can't believe it. Um, but like I'm pretty sure actual rich people are not like anxiously waiting for Viennetta's return. Like I think Viennetta is what middle class and poor people think rich people like. And they're like definitely not eating that. They're doing something else.
Yeah, I mean, whatever their favorite thing is, which is funny. A lot of the sort of upper crust foods that we think the rich folks like, honestly, are pretty accessible. Caviar is accessible. Escargot is probably accessible, depending on if you know where to go. Lobster, again, very accessible. I mean, it's funny. I always see it at as an adult, no kids. We always talk about how kids mainly wait for Christmas. As an adult, Christmas is every day because really, within reason, I mean, then again, either way, people can buy whatever they want whenever they want. And it's not even a big thing. Like, oh, I just wanted to I wanted to get a PS4. Why not? Some people do that. I mean,
Yeah, well, I feel like it's such a luxury to feel like you're able to go out and do that because then the reality of it is that most people have like a crippling amount of debt and bills and stuff where their money is already apportioned out. So they can't really think about, I mean, I'm sure that they're able to plan and like affirm their choices and like what luxuries they can save up for. But like adulthood is like severely disappointing if like your income is below your tastes. Or like just, like you feel like the sense of freedom because you've reached adulthood and you have like a job where you have like a disposable income and stuff like that. But then like the reality of it is that you also have like a ton of adult responsibilities. And I feel like people are just like way more privileged than they're willing to admit if they have like any sort of disposable income, So well, with that in mind, like I don't mean to be like disparaging towards people that are like, doing well for themselves. It's more that like a lot of times I hear people complaining about stuff, and then like it's easy for me to do the same, but I have to have this attitude of like humility and gratitude. Like, man, like I have like all the stuff that like isn't accessible to other people. Like I have a lot of things that stress me out, but like maybe like a healthier way to view it is like to take inventory of the stuff I'm grateful for and stuff. And that's not always easy to do because I'm like, I really want to buy that Vienna ice cream, man. Is that in my budget?
Yeah,
So,
oh yeah, no, and I hear you completely. And I think, I mean, there's people who are broke who end up being high maintenance when it comes to things they like too, but they can't reconcile that certain things have to be taken care of before you can end up, trying to live how the other half lives sometimes.
oh yeah, for sure.
Especially as we were talking about the pandemic, that everybody's been, binge watching everything and people watching tons of stuff on TV. What has your binge watching regimen been?
Okay, so I'll have to tell you like what's at the top of my head. Like I recently got into this show called The Dead Files, and there's like this medium who goes into houses and other properties like restaurants and stuff like that, where there are people who are like, yeah, I definitely sense a presence, and like it's interfering with their lives. Like they have apparently they're feeling some sort of paranormal presence that's like terrifying to them. Like they wake up with from attacks where they've been like bruised and stuff by like a ghost. And so she goes in there and she like is able to interact with those presences and stuff like that, and then give them recommendations on how to deal with them. So I think the aspect of it I like the most is just this idea that like every house has stories that you're not aware of, like that there were once people there who lived there a long time ago, and like they had like really dynamic lives and like really interesting personalities, and um, just just experiences that you wouldn't really be able to see or be aware of. So that's why I feel like an attachment to that show. It's not necessarily like the occult element of it, but um, as a tarot reader, I could kind of like relate to how she was interacting with some of the energies there. Because like sometimes she would say that she isn't really interacting with a ghost, but like a piece of the person's personality that exists there still. And I think a lot of tarot readers might say the same thing, but basically like when they're connecting with like the energy of cards, what they're seeing is like a part of a person's personality that kind of exists. And I don't know how else to describe it, but like a Google Drive that's like in the ether where that collects all of these like little movie clips of how you interact with other people, and just like the sort of emotional imprint that you leave with people when you're having experiences with them. So I thought that was really interesting. Like I don't have like the gift of being able to um, see spirits, and I'm kind of glad I don't. But I definitely understand and can relate to this idea of sometimes you can just have an awareness and an understanding of people's feelings, and it's not something that's um, something you can see on the surface or something that's really visible to anybody else. So anyway, So those are two main reasons I felt drawn to that show. So I was kind of like binge watching that, and then like in my new house, like I've been like afraid of going into the basement because like I watch that show at night, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Now I can't sleep. I'm like terrified of ghosts. So I still watch it though.
I know you also are talking about some other shows, maybe sort of like the true crime documentaries and shows.
Yeah, I can't even recall the names of them anymore. Like, there were like I purchased like these little mini series on Amazon that were like part of like the True ID network or something like that, where um like people will talk about like I think there were shows titled like I married the serial killer or like I had this horrible first date and like I think I went into it thinking that people would talk about like how their date was like really gross or something like that, but it turned out to be a show about where they were almost murdered or like someone close to them was like murdered by some serial killer but went on a date with them, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting more of like something more lighthearted, like a rom-com that ends badly or something. And so I'm sorry, but I can't give you any more tips there. Like I was religiously listening to My Favorite Murder, and so I kept looking for shows that were along that vein.
Yeah, it's funny. During the early part of the pandemic, I was binge watching a lot of Murder She Wrote.
Yeah, you told me about that. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and it's interestingly enough, it's funny. 12 seasons of episodes, you blow through it in almost 3 months, which is crazy. And I know, of course, now it's like on Peacock, so you can't not get away from it if you want. But pretty much my binge watching, aside from that, have been old sitcoms, old game shows, new game shows, and pretty much just regular TV. And other than that, not much sports to watch, not much other things to guess distract yourselves. I mean, occasional video game playing because that has been the one of the best escapes when you can
Oh,
do that,
cool.
especially now.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's crazy that sometimes you can spend hours playing video games if you get yourself a little too caught up into it.
Well, I think that's one of the. I think that's what makes it a great hobby. I can't think of um, many people who aren't using video games as like a fun diversion, and I feel like it's an affordable way to like just do something fun. Like a lot of things aren't really accessible to people right now that you would normally use to like literally escape, like vacations or um, like hobbies that are more expensive. And so I know that video gaming can be a bit expensive, but like on the spectrum of things that are expensive, like that's one of the things that's more accessible to people, and also serves as like a way to facilitate conversation between people because like a lot of people are playing the same games. I can't really say the same for myself. Like I was thinking about getting a Switch just so I could play Animal Crossing, and I heard it looks like a fun game, but it's expensive. Like I recently got into playing Pokemon Go, and that's kind of been sucking up my money and stuff too. So and like there isn't even really much interaction involved in the game. Like I think the game itself though fosters a sense of like building a team and like feeling like a sense of community because you have to depend on like people you friend to access parts of the game. So that's a really great marketing thing that they picked up on. But like the psychology of the game itself, like just how a lot of games now are more geared to like this community, the sense of community and like the sense of like fostering social interaction with other people is what makes them successful. And like you would never think that like you could look at games as that type of medium, like a medium for making people feel closer to each other and like build their friendships up and stuff like that. But that's a feature of a lot of games. So or games that are doing really well right now.
So I have to ask this question: when was
Yeah.
the last time you were in an arcade, and what would your go-to game be in an arcade?
Oh man, like I think does Dave and Buster's count as an arcade, or like are you talking about an arcade, like an actual arcade from like the '90s or something?
Let's classify Dave and Buster's as an arcade. All those different types of places, Dave and Buster's main event, those types of places where there are arcade games. Because if we end up going back to describing, okay, the last time you've been to a true arcade, that could probably take you back a decade or decade plus.
No, yeah, like so like a true arcade, I'd probably say I was not even a teenager yet. Like that must have been like 20 years ago. I'm not even sure if there's arcades that exist still. And like I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, I was at a Dave and Buster's, and like they have all those. I like those. I don't know what like I don't know how you would classify them, but they have like those shooter type games where like you're on a pirate ship and you have to um like kill a bunch of undead. So like they equip you with like a little gun or something like that. And I have a friend that collects retro games, and like I don't know what console it was for, but he had a game that was like very similar to the games in arcades, and I thought it was really cool. Like I think the mechanic was that or like the mechanic for interacting with the game is that you had to like type out certain words. Like it was a typing game. And like you had to type out certain words really quickly to be able to defeat more undead. So like that seems to be like a formula for a lot of games in arcades, is like you have to encounter a bunch of like jump scare type monsters and like defeat them with whatever weapons you have. And so like I think those are, I don't know, I probably like those are the only games I can think of. So like I suppose like that's what I would gravitate towards if I were to walk inside an arcade. Like you have like stuff like Street Fighter and like those like fighter type games. And I'm not much of a gamer myself, but like I could I just feel like you could play those at home and like save your token for something more meaningful.
No pinball or skee ball or anything like that.
I actually like pinball machines actually, but like I haven't seen like I don't remember seeing one in the last arcade I was at. I went to Vegas a few years ago, and they had like this really cool like pinball machine museum, and I wish I could remember what those look like, because it's really cool like watching what goes on inside one, and just thinking about like the fact that someone had to sit there and like lovingly craft all of that. Like makes me want to like watch it. I'm not even really interested in how most things are made, but I am kind of interested in like how a pinball machine is made, because like that's a lot of artwork and and like stuff that goes into it.
Yeah, and I think that stuff is probably slowly going out of style. And those skee ball machines, I think they've stopped producing a lot of those. So those things, once they go up, that's probably it for that, unless they all of a sudden decide, okay, let's bring those back. But pinball machines, it feels like there are as many new pinball machines out there as there are new arcade cabins and things like that, cabinets and things like that. So that is very intriguing. I mean, pinball has never been my thing. I prefer, the actual gaming sense. I think you ask anybody who knows me, they know what game I would hover towards when I'm in an arcade, and it's the Star Wars trilogy arcade game, because that was one I spent tons of quarters on all the time. Oh yes.
Do they have it for like any of the platforms that you currently play on? Like, is it like
Never.
a game now or something?
I don't think they ever did. I don't think they ever did.
I'm pretty sure that it's out there. I mean, like, it has to be, but I don't want to like ruin that for you if like you prefer to think it was something special and like exclusive to arcades.
Yeah, I mean that's how we used to feel about the X-Men arcade game, but then we ended up getting that on place. They brought it on PlayStation Network years ago, and it's on my PlayStation 3. So whenever if actually decide to ever play that again, fire it up, and I got 4-player action to play X-Men, which that game feels like it's aged a bit, but then again, it was like 1990, so.
Oh man, well, I feel like X-Men ages pretty well. Like, it's funny how like a lot of the Marvel comics or really comic book characters have aged well.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing how you always have to. There's always, it feels like every 5, 10 years, there's always a reboot, and you're just basically having the same origin story, tweaking things, but you push it ahead 10, 20, 30 years. Like, for example, the same story, Superman story, pretty much seems like it's the same, but instead of it being like in the 1920s or 1910s, now, okay, it's 1970s, 1980s, when they found the rocket with the baby in it. And it's interesting to see how they modernize it. But then again, I feel like there's so many comic books I can't keep track of them. It's crazy enough that I can remember some of these superheroes and supervillains that are like lower tier that end up showing up in these movies and TV shows, and like, I can't believe I still remember this.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it's a nice bit of nostalgia. So
Oh yeah, definitely. And now, one of the things we were talking about earlier is the discussion of the natal chart. I
right.
wanted to get an idea, I guess, to let people out there know what is a natal chart, and how do you read it, and what does it measure? I guess to be the best way to describe it.
Okay, well, do you want to pull up yours? Are you able to share
Uh,
that?
I'm trying to figure out a way that I can share it. Let me see.
Okay.
Um, yeah, let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Yep, I have these two monitors up, and we'll put that up, and it might be a little hard for people to see, but
That's okay. Is there a way that we could just focus on like, so one of them is your natal chart and one of them is like your solar return chart. So we only need to look at one at a time if that's
okay.
all possible.
Okay, cool. I am trying to figure out which one that is.
Okay, well, the one that's your solar return chart says, let me make sure, like, I think I have a copy on my phone somewhere. Um, the one that's your solar return chart actually says solar return on it. And the one that's your natal chart says natal chart on it, like in red font at the upper left-hand corner.
I'm trying to, you know what? I might, unless I've picked two of the same.
Yeah,
Uh,
you might have. So
yeah.
like the first one is your natal chart, I think, because like I'm looking at the aspect lines that are on it. So the one that you have up now is your natal. We could look at that.
Okay.
Okay. Um, yeah, so basically, an astrology chart is a model of the sky that's projected upon the ecliptic. And it's what the ecliptic is the path of the sun that's seen from Earth. And like on your actual natal chart, this model includes a circle of 12 houses and signs. So each house has its own sign in the chart system I usually use to read charts. It's the whole sign system. And the chart is determined on where the horizon is at the time that the chart is cast. So the horizon forms the boundary between what can be seen, which is like the visible sky, and then the sky which exists on the opposite side of the earth. So you know that whole saying, as above, so below. So there's the part of the sky that you can see, which is the as above part, and then the so below part is part of a chart that's on the bottom of where the horizon line is. So in that actual chart, you might see just like that middle line that goes like through the diameter of the circle. Um, so that actually, there's like an axis that if you see where that those two letters AC are, that represents your ascendant angle.
Okay.
And so that's the line that's being drawn across the horizon. And so everything above that chart or above that axis where your AC, your ascendant line, and your DC descendant line are represents the parts of your life that are more visible to other people, whereas the part of the circle that is below that line, below that ascendant axis, represents parts of your life that are a bit more private to you. So so what that chart represents. There's two other angles. One is called the midheaven angle, or the medium quelli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I used to take Latin too, so I have no excuse. And that's the middle. That represents the middle of the sky. So you see where those letters MC are? That's your midheaven angle.
Okay.
And what that represents in astrology is your public image and like the part of yourself that you would like the public to see, like how you I guess a better term for it is like your aspirations and like your career, like what you want to be remembered for, basically. And directly opposite the midheaven angle is what is called your IC line, or I don't want to. It's called your imum quelli in Latin, and whereas the midheaven represents the part of the heavens that is like the highest point in the sky, like where the sun reaches the highest point. The opposite of that is like the midnight point. So if you think of like how like part of the earth is covered in darkness, whereas the other part of the earth has daylight, that's what this chart sort of represents. And like the positions of the planets kind of speak to parts of your life where you can observe some type of planetary energy. So it's all about symbolism in a way, but astrology just isn't what you want it to be, or like you aren't, like a lot of times people feel like the significations of different symbolism in the chart is just something that can be made up, and it really isn't. Like there's actually a science to it, and an interpretive divinatory art that comes along with being able to understand and appreciate like what that chart represents. So anyway, usually what I do when I start a natal chart reading is I look at the ascendant angle and the planetary ruler for that. So that's what I'll do with your chart. I'm just going to go through each house and kind of walk you through what each of those things represents. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
So if you can see, there's like a part of the circle that's labeled 1 towards the center. And it also contains the ascendant angle that I pointed out to you earlier. That's your first house. And your first house represents your general self, like how you appear to the world, your outlook on life, and just how people perceive you when they meet you, really. And for you, your first house is Taurus, and Taurus is the earth sign of Venus. So by earth, I mean like an element. So there's the element of earth, there's the element of water, and there's the element of air and fire. So you have like a more earthy disposition to you. And in your first house, you happen to have your moon, which represents your inner emotions and your emotional state, how you happen to process emotions. And it's really tightly conjunct your ascendant angle. So one thing I will say about your chart is that you have a really great moon. And but because the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus, and exalted is a term that we like to use in astrology for a planet that has VIP status. Like it has a lot of qualities that are ideal. So some of the keywords that we think of when we look at the sign of Taurus is practical, steady. You might even be stubborn, because the sign of Taurus is like a fixed sign. You are really loyal and sincere. You're emotionally grounded. So those are all things that we would associate with somebody that has a Taurus moon. And Something else about your moon is that it has what's called accidental dignity because it's in a house that's angular. And we talked about angles at the beginning of this discussion, and like angles are just parts of the chart that stick out more. And so having planets that are close to those angles gives them more strength, if that makes sense. So, so one of the really nice qualities that you have is just this loyalty and constancy in emotions, and like that's something that's really nice to have um, in terms of, I guess, what anybody would really want for their emotions. And the way you express yourself too might have more of a Venusian quality. So when we talk about the planet Venus, we talk what that's Venus is associated with what makes things beautiful and pleasing to others. And so having that type of influence on the part of your chart that represents how you're perceived by others and how you express yourself, how you like filter the world around you is really nice because it means that people might feel really comfortable and secure when they're around you. So again, like keywords of Taurus, it's like this feeling of security and having nice taste and like enjoying like the material world around you and feeling really grounded, really. So that's your first house. So in some way, the way you appear to others and the way you filter the world around you is really expressed through this Venusian Taurus moon that you have. So again, when we're looking at the ascendant, we not only look at the planets that are in the first house, but we also look at planetary rulers. And so for you, you have your Venus, which is your chart ruler, your chart planetary ruler, and Mars in the 11th house of hopes and wishes and social networks. So the 11th house in astrology often represents like our wide network of friends, like people we consider as acquaintances, and also like our dreams, like things that we want to do. And also because it represents like groups of people that we're part of, like it can also represent groups that are like parts of hobbies and like different affiliations that we have. So in some way, the way that you I guess the way that you approach life is connected to how you relate to different groups that you're a part of and that you're passionate about. So since you have the planet Venus, which is like your sense of taste and like what you love, conjunct Mars, which is the planet of like ambition and drive, it tends to make you very passionate of a person. And also it gives you like this really hopeless romantic type of quality because the sign of Pisces is like a it's like the zodiac sign that's associated with dreams and like idealism. And so having Venus and Mars there can make you like really passionate and idealistic. And so maybe when you were younger, you might have had trouble like differentiating infatuation from real love. And like with your friends, you might have had this habit of like seeing the best in them and not really seeing them for who they were, because like you're just looking at the best in other people. Especially since Venus and Mars like forms this square aspect, which is kind of like tension between Neptune, which is like this. I don't know if you can see it, but like it's this weird like Y shape that's in the part of the circle that's numbered 8. So like you might have had this you might have struggled with like over idealizing things at one point in your life. And but maybe because of that, it like also helps you to form friendships, because who doesn't like to have somebody who sees the best in them and who believes in them? And so you might have like just a circle of acquaintances that you're able to maintain really good contact with because of your moon, like your loyalty and your just this ability to like once you've made up your mind about somebody, you probably have a hard time changing it. So I think also having like this great passion and this great idealism can make it to where like you um, you have to be careful not to be misled or to have people take advantage of you, basically. And at the same time, like it's just nice to have somebody that likes to follow their dreams and to see the best in everything. So so that just covers like your first house and like the ruler that I see there. And by the way, your sun happens to be in the 11th house too. So you're actually, I don't know if you were aware of like what your sun, like how most people refer to their zodiac sign.
Mhm.
So you like some people might say you fall on the cusp because like you are born like um, on the date that like falls between Aquarius and Pisces, but like you're technically a Pisces sun and not an Aquarius sun because like at the moment you were born, you were 25 minutes into Pisces, which is like why I told you it was really important that I have like your exact birth time so that we can get you a more accurate chart. But yeah, like a lot of people I know who have strong Pisces energy are like very idealistic and they're very willing to see like what the good is in others. Okay, so moving on to your second house, like your second house is in Gemini, which is the zodiac sign, which is associated with like being communicative and curious. And the second house in astrology represents how we make our living and like our material possessions. So the planetary ruler for that house happens to be in your house of career. So in some way, like writing and communications and anything that like resonates with Gemini themes, like just being like generally curious about the world around you and like being able to hold a good conversation is related to your career. You have
That's
like
very interesting.
yeah, and so the other funny thing is so you have I remember I earlier in this conversation I referred to your midheaven angle, which is the angle that's most associated with your public image and your career. You have Mercury conjunct that, or pretty tightly conjunct that midheaven angle. And so in astrology, Mercury is the planet that is associated with our intellect and our communication skills and just any type of technical skill in general. So you have it in the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of being innovative and like different from everybody else. And it's also a sign that's like very humanitarian in that it's like very accepting and tolerant of other people's views. So again, to this concept of like accidental dignity, which is like when one of your planets is conjunct an angle that is like very visible to other people or just like an angle somewhere in your chart, it gives that planet strength. Um, so another astrologer looking at this chart would say, wow, like this person has a really strong Mercury because it has accidental dignity. So it means that this person is probably really intelligent, has great intellect, has great communication skills. And in the sign of Aquarius, it also means that you're probably very open-minded and that you're able to be objective, like when you're considering viewpoints that are different from yourself. One thing about your Mercury, though, is that it squares Saturn in the seventh house, and the seventh house in astrology is not is important relationships that we have. So not just like partners, like romantic partners, best friends, but also people who are influential in our life because they were particularly crappy to us, like enemies, and just like relationships that we've had that were very character forming. So for you, you have that square aspect, and it means that like maybe in an earlier age you might have struggled with um, like self-confidence and like trying to figure out how to assert yourself. Another consequence of having such a strong Mercury is that like you might have had a tendency to overthink things or overanalyze things, and you might still have that problem now. So in some ways, like you have like analysis paralysis, or like just this ability to kind of like Jedi mind trick yourself into thinking you're not enough. And like because Saturn is in your seventh house, like that could have been because of the influence of a partner or somebody that you just really strongly just did not get along with, and it caused you to self-doubt yourself. And but on the other hand, one good thing about Saturn is it doesn't just represent like our restrictions, because Saturn is like I like to liken Saturn as like the father figure that you don't want to disappoint, because he seems like really distant and cold, and like just this like he seems like biblical God basically, but he also just makes us bring out our A game. So in some ways, you might have had really close relationships that forced you and challenged you to bring out the best in yourself. Like maybe like you get along best with people who intellectually stimulate you and challenge you, and so that's something that's represented by that harsh aspect too. But yeah, like when I guess since the birth chart or the natal chart also represents part of your karma, it's um think of karma also as like not just like this idea of like if I do something bad then something bad is going to happen to me. It's more like you're born with certain experiences in life that you're meant to go through to develop as a person. And so it looks like part of your karma is just like understanding the dynamics of your relationships and not letting them limit you, and also just not limiting yourself like when you feel like really hard on yourself, because you do have like a really great mind and you're very intelligent. So that's always going to be one of your greater strengths. And that takes me to the next house in your chart, which is the third house. So the third house is Cancer, and in astrology, Cancer is a sign ruled by the moon. Cancer, if you think about like the actual animal that represents Cancer, a crab, it's like very it has like a shell that like it uses to protect itself. It kind of likes to it has its own like comfort zone. So one thing I'm seeing in your chart is that you are somebody that really appreciates comfort. Like just this like just feeling attached to what you know, and like what you know is safe. And so like you might be the type of person that appreciates like a good pillow or like good comfort food, or when people hang out with you, they probably feel like this sense of like warmth and safety, and like those are actually qualities that are really important to you as well. But the third house represents it represents our early upbringings, and it also represents like our immediate community and our like immediate family, and just like our childhood. And for some reason, and like sometimes I forget this connection, but it represents also like our self-expression and like our ability to communicate in both writing and like verbally. So that's another strong area in your life. So there's like multiple testimonies in this chart that to me show like that in this life you were born to have great communication skills and to like make the best of them. So because you have what's called the North Node there, the North Node in astrology a lot of people associate with a life purpose. So maybe your purpose in life is to figure out how to be more expressive and more genuine and authentic to like what you find is near and dear to you. So I think at some point, and like this might actually be something that's coming up now, because you actually have like a lot of planets that are transiting your 10th house of career. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you had an opportunity come up where you basically just get to show the world like what you really love and are passionate about, even if it just seems kind of mundane to you, like things that are comfortable and like familiar to you. And it also kind of shows that you have like a constant calling to come back home, if that makes sense, to like revisit your roots. And so somehow I see that's intertwined with how you express yourself and like the story that you have to share. So maybe like what one interpretation of that is that like you should feel um, more pride in like where you come from and like what you find interesting and familiar, and see the value in being able to share that with other people. Even though like it might feel a bit uncomfortable, because like this is the lower half of your chart, so these are things that are kind of more like intimate and like it's kind of like having someone hang out like in your room, like, well, platonically really, but like just get to know you more up close and personal. But like I find it seems to me that you would find a lot of purpose in doing that. So anyway, so let me see, like I had some more notes about like what I wanted to talk about. Like we're only like 3 houses into your chart. And oh, by the way, so you're turning age 38, right? So
38.
okay, so you actually are entering what's called a third house perfection year. And a perfection is a Time Lord technique. I know these are like really jargony type words, but basically, like there's 12 signs in the zodiac. And so every 12 years, starting from your first birthday, you enter a first house perfection year. And then like from each, like you go through a different every year you basically have themes of a certain house that are more relevant to you. So this year you happen to be going through a third house perfection year, which means that you might be writing a lot more, you might be making more trips to see your family, like just like not long distance trips, like I guess COVID safe trips. Like you might be more creatively with your communications career, and you also might be more sensitive to lunar events, and lunar meaning your moon. So I actually have 2 dates that come to mind because they're dates of lunar eclipses. Okay. So for the first lunar eclipse, it happens at 5 degrees of Sagittarius on May 26th of this year. And so Sagittarius is your 8th house, which is conjunct your natal Jupiter and Uranus. Yes, I pronounce Uranus. Some people say Uranus, but like I can't say that without like giggling like a schoolgirl. And like I'm so sorry about that, Uranus. But like it. But I heard some other astrologers pronounce it as Uranus, and I'm like, okay, problem solved. If I say it that way, I won't laugh.
I know that Neil deGrasse Tyson says Uranus just to, he says that, yeah, it's juvenile when you say Uranus, but Uranus is the best way to go.
Yeah. So anyway, looking at that house, so the 8th house is a really interesting house because it deals with like a lot of, it's like an umbrella of things that are like hard to talk about. Like it includes taxes, it includes like taboo subjects like sex and mortality, it includes your partner's resources, so like basically like shared assets that you only come in contact to like if you're in a relationship with that person. So like the assets of your significant other, or like sometimes it can refer to like the assets of just someone you're very close to. So when you have a lunar eclipse in that house, it's likely that you'll have a very significant event, like a memorable event that has to do with one of those themes. So I think, people with the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, like, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a lot of people with like Jupiter in the 8th house who basically are politicians. Like because they get their money, or like they have like a lot of resources that come into them from taxpayer money. And so again, like the 8th house represents taxes. So 8th house can also represent like inheritances. So basically like some type of money that isn't yours is represented by the 8th house. And Uranus is the planet of like surprises and like things that you don't really expect to see coming. And so I would think, because Jupiter is in a good, it's in a good sign since it's in the sign of its rulership. Sagittarius is like this planet that is like a very happy, like go lucky type of sign. Like it has to do with like the themes that Jupiter is really like Jupiter is most associated with, like expansion and higher wisdom and like wanting to traverse borders and stuff like that. So like Jupiter feels happy in that sign, and so it's happy in the sign of Sagittarius in your chart. So with that conjunction, like if you kind of like blend the two significations of that planet, it's like a happy sort of surprise. Like there could be a chance that you might come across like an inheritance of some sort, or just like unexpected money that isn't yours, like maybe from like taxes or what, like I don't know, but like those topics are likely to come up. And like as a result of that, it's also really important because of the other things I see in your chart, that like if you ever do have a situation where you end up with like an unexpected windfall, that you set up really good expectations with whoever you end up having to share that with, so that way there isn't any type of misunderstanding that could cause like an argument or some type of fallout. And yeah, like it seems like you have a lot of karma in your chart that like points to you maybe trusting the wrong people. And I know that seems like everybody deals with that, but like you in particular, like might have to be really careful with that, at least when it comes to issues like stuff you share with others. So anyway, another good thing about like the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in your chart is that you come across a lot of unexpected opportunities. Like you also might just attract a lot of experiences and people in your life who are like good for you, but like in a surprising way. And just just like dealing with like this interesting characters may have been like a big theme in your life, and just knowing how to set up good boundaries with them is going to be really important. Anyway, so the other thing I was looking at, like I think I might go offline later and kind of tell you more about other interesting stuff in your chart, but like I just see that you have like a lot of blessings when it comes to being able to share what you're curious about, and like stuff that you're able to convey to people using writing or some other forms of communication. Like your 5th house is ruled by Mercury too, and like the 5th house is like another good house in astrology, because like it refers to like our creations, like our creative babies, so to speak, because like the 5th house also represents children, but like our children can be like all sorts of things, not just like actual babies, but like pet projects, like stuff that you put a lot of love and like effort into. So that's ruled by your really strong Mercury too. And so if you can just get over like your own like inhibitions and like self-doubt, then you would do really well with anything you create, using your really great communication skills and your really sharp intellect. So okay, and then the other house I was looking at is your seventh house of partnerships. So you actually have like, I don't know how easy it is for you to follow along, but like it's that line that has the number 7 on it. And so you have Pluto, which is that big letter P, and Saturn, which looks kind of like the letter H with that bar across it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so basically, at least up until your, I want to say like age 30 or something like that, you might have had problems like finding a really suitable long-term partner. Um, Most people go through what's called a Saturn return. Well, not most people, all people go through what's a Saturn return because of like the time it takes for Saturn to go through all 12 signs, which is about like 27 and a half years. And so every 27 and a half years, we have this period of about like 2.5 years where we're really challenged in some way. And so it just depends on like what house Saturn is in. And so for you, maybe around the age of 30, you might have had some really challenging experiences involving your close relationships or deep or friendships. And usually around this time, it's like when people go through just more responsibilities. It could have just meant that you had like more responsibilities in general when it came to like relationships or like important contractual relationships that you were in, or you might have gone through like a tough breakup or something like that. But a Saturn return for most people just usually represents like a coming of age in somebody's story, like a time in their life where they felt like they were entering a new chapter and like feeling like they matured more in some way. And I think I mentioned earlier about like how having Saturn in the seventh can sometimes mean that it takes you a long time to find the right person. But when you do find someone that's right for you, it's a relationship that's built to last because the planet Saturn like favors long-term things that are good for us versus like short-term gratification. And so as you get older, like you might find that the quality of your friendships is really it just gets better for you. And you also have Pluto there, which is this planet of intense transformation. So like when you meet someone like that's a good friend to you, or even I guess even like your significant other or somebody that you actually are a good fit for, like you might feel as though they literally change your life, like change a lot of things about you. So I think again, like this can be said for a lot of people, but for you too, like it's important that you pick people, like not just, I'm not even just referring to like significant others, but like friends, because like for some reason it seems that like the friends that you have like have a really profound impact on you, and like it's almost like you would change a lot about yourself to not, maybe not just to accommodate them, but like just having them in your life has like such a strong impact on you, and even on how you think about yourself and how you believe in yourself. So so that's one way I would interpret that.
Mhm.
um the other thing is that, gosh, where was I going with this? Oh, so the seventh house, it represents like the energy of people who you have significant relationships with. So because the seventh house is Scorpio, and I'm kind of like laughing to myself about this now because I'm a Scorpio, and we seem to be relatively good or okay friends. Like you're my good
Oh,
friend.
okay.
Like, please be my friend. But anyway, like you have significant relationships with people who have Scorpio type energy. So like you might have like uh, you might feel drawn to people who seem more like mysterious or like reserved, or people that just have more to them than like what's on the surface. Like, and then another, like there's other qualities like keywords I would associate with Scorpio, like being Oh gosh. Well, that's what comes to mind. Like people who are who kind of have like this mysterious allure to them. Although I don't know if I would classify myself as that. That's just one of the like the stereotypes or archetypes of that sign. Um, so I feel like maybe people who are really passionate and loyal and good at keeping secrets, those are people that are really good for you. But in terms of like what else the seventh house represents, which is like people that you've had maybe more difficult relationships with that taught you lessons. Um, Maybe it's like people who betrayed you and you just didn't feel like you saw it coming, because that's like one of the darker Scorpio traits, like feeling ambushed by something they've done because they seem to be so good at keeping secrets, or just people who are like more over possessive or controlling. Like those are other dark traits associated with Scorpio too. So like those are, the chart just shows themes of stuff that potentially could happen in your life, and just situations that like are going to be themes in your life. And yeah, looking at other parts of your chart, like the 12th house represents like our subconscious and like our like stuff that we can't really see, since it's like in a place that can't really be seen from your ascendant. So like Marsy type energy, like you may feel as though like that type of energy, or like maybe maybe like people with that energy are like harder to understand for you, or like just just stuff that like resonates with some of your more subconscious fears. But anyway, if I were to just give you like an overview of like your chart, like it's stuff that you know about yourself already, and it's harder when I'm your friend, because like it's hard not to look at this chart from like a more objective standpoint, since I know some of this stuff about you, but I don't think I knew everything. So in a way, it's like meeting you over again. And you have a lot of luck when it comes to anything anything involving written communications. But you also have a lot of challenges when it comes to over idealizing people, and maybe not having clear boundaries in your relationships, especially like when it seems maybe just like despite the fact that you are really smart and you are really good at figuring things out, there's like certain situations you get into that make you doubt yourself. And this chart is telling you that instead of doubting yourself, like you have to rise above it, and challenge yourself to be at your best, because that's something you can do. So I'm really interested to see how some of these like lunar eclipses play out. I don't remember if oh gosh, I totally forgot.
May 26th one.
May 26th, and I forgot one that happens on your ascendant, actually. So November 19th, you might pursue a certain goal regarding your identity or like your appearance. Like maybe you'll have a new style that you want to adopt. Like maybe you have like a wardrobe change. Maybe you lose weight more. But like it's more substantial than that. It seems like there's something that comes up that makes you think you want to go in a direction where you're redefining yourself. So so I don't know how that's going to manifest for you, and especially since like I'm telling you about it, because like I'm thinking about like other times I've had lunar eclipses happen to me, and like I wasn't aware of them because I haven't been using them as much in my own practice. But like I look back on like certain dates and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I remember what happened then, and it was like something that was really significant for me emotionally, at least. So yeah, I wanted to give you a solar return chart reading too, and it's gonna be really short because like I didn't get a chance to look over it that much. But so the solar return chart is different from a natal chart because it looks at where the sun is when it returns to the exact degree in the sky that it was at the time of your birth. So it's like it's like its own natal chart. And so this year, it looks really significant for your career. So you had, I don't know if you're able to pull it up, but
Yes, I have it.
oh, okay. Do you want me to look at it? Okay.
Yes, it is, and yeah.
Okay. So you have like a lot of stuff going on in both your house of close personal relationships, the seventh house, and the 10th house of your career and public image. So I'm thinking that somehow there's some type of tension between those two areas of your life that happens sometime this year, that like I don't know, it might be good for you, but also might be really stressful. And looking at your actual solar return chart, it's easy for me if I just pull it up on my phone. Um, like your moon and Mars in your 10th house is conjunct the moon in your natal chart. So to me, that's significant because it feels like, especially there's Uranus there too, which is the planet of like surprises and like innovation and stuff, like stuff that's unexpected. Like you might find a way to recraft yourself in a way that other people weren't expecting. And it has a lot to do with your career and like your career aspirations and like personal goals of yours, like how you want to be perceived by other people. Um, and so somehow like another theme of repetition in this chart, like between your natal chart and your solar return chart, is that you also have Saturn. And like this is so weird because it's like you have Saturn and Pluto on your seventh house cusp in your natal chart. And I just noticed in your solar return chart, you also have Saturn and Pluto there. And like they're completely different signs too. So it's weird that that type of thing is happening. But like somehow I think that maybe relationships that are important to you, or like just some type of long-term arrangement that's important to you, is going to be put in focus by like your career aspirations. So maybe you'll be balancing like your own personal goals and your own career goals with like how that plays out in your other close relationships, and somehow those areas are intertwined. You also have Sun in the 8th house, which I think is interesting given the fact that like you have a lunar eclipse coming up in that 8th house too. So somehow like I don't know what, but like money that's not yours, or like some sort of theme of like resources or money that's not yours, or something surrounding like other taboo topics like death and inheritance. Like I don't want to make that sound really scary.
You know,
It could just mean that like you have like some sort of mysterious benefactor in your life that like bestows upon you like a great gift, or you could just get a huge tax return, who knows. But but like those like it's more likely though, because like the 8th house ruler is in your 7th house, meaning that like somehow this like whatever's going on in that area of your life is connected with your partner, that like either you have this issue of like how to divvy up these shared resources with your loved ones or people close to you, or like somehow through them you or through some sort of relation to them you come across like a huge windfall of some sort. You have Neptune there too, so like Neptune in a chart to me, because Neptune is this planet of, if you think of like what he's like in Greek and Roman mythology, he's like the god of the ocean and like of dreams and stuff like that. And like it's this area that kind of seems blurry to us because we can't see it clearly. So so it calls upon you to be very clear in communicating what your boundaries are, because like when we have some sort of divination telling us, hey, this is a part of your life where you're not able to see things very clearly, you want to like you want to be as objective as possible if you can help it, if you can be self-aware of it, and involve people that aren't as close to the issue but have your best interest in mind when you're dealing with topics like that.
Mhm.
So this is a big year for you because you have like certain things repeating in both charts, and like they're completely different charts, but relevant to you. Like where like obviously the quality of your really your most important relationships is going to be put into focus, and also like your career aspirations involving like stuff you already do, like writing and expressing yourself in an authentic way, are gonna be big things for you, and big in influencing like whatever you want to be next. So I'm excited to see how that plays out for you, because it seems
Yeah.
like they're all really good things. Not everyone can say that they have a Venus, like a really nice conditioned moon in their ascendant. Like I wish I had a Taurus moon. I have a Cancer moon, and like it makes me very sensitive and empathetic. And that hasn't like I mean, there's obvious qualities that um, are good that come from having that kind of configuration. But for me, like sometimes I just wish I had an off switch for like how I was feeling. And like I feel like with a Taurus moon like you have, you're much better at being practical about how you feel, even if you are a bit of a hopeless romantic. So
You know what? Looking at this stuff and hearing it makes me a bit nervous. Very nervous.
right.
Well, some of the things you read to a T, which like yikes. And then other things, like I said, you know,
I
you,
mean, that's just how I would interpret it. Like you have, oh, actually, I just noticed in your solar return chart, you have North Node in the 11th in Gemini. So I think that's like fairly good for like social networking and stuff like that. You also have, oh gosh, I just noticed that you have Rahu, which is the South Node. It's kind of like a karmic thing going on in like in the sign of Sagittarius for you this year. So that will be conjunct where you have your what's it called, your lunar eclipse, but not very close. So I don't know, something transformative happens there. And I hate using the word transformative because there's a lot of people who like throw around certain words in astrology that make me think like, do I really sound like that? Do I sound like very like woo woo and not to bash on that kind of thing, but like for me, it doesn't resonate with me as much. And like I try to use my chart reading capability to just kind of prepare people for what's coming next if I can do it, because it's an intuitive art as much as it is like being able to understand like books and symbolism. So yeah, well, I mean, we can definitely talk more about this offline, but
yeah.
really, around people's birthdays is when I do stuff like this. Like I take a look at their solar return chart, and like I kind of tell them, hey, like I see this coming up for you. But there's much stronger predictive techniques out there, but I'm not really versed in yet. And like that's something I've been working on more in my practice. So it was fun kind of going over this with you, because like I felt like we were like close as far as team members go on like our HCAS team, but like I don't know that we ever really got closer than that, like in terms of friends. Like there's just some of this stuff, like I feel like I'm reading it to you and I'm like, okay, well, like I'm sure a lot of people know that about you, but it's more, it feels more profound for me when it's like someone I've never met before, and I kind of go through the same thing, and like it's sort of like, well, like how did you know that? I'm like, I don't know, like I read some books, and like I figured like I just do this a lot because it's something I feel like I'm really good at doing. Like I feel like if I ever went into a different career than I have now, I'd probably be some type of counselor for something.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and some of these things that will be discussed off air. It's yeah, that's very interesting. And
Yeah.
again, we haven't got to the ones that involve private life. So
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like when I'm talking about like close relationships, I'm not just talking about like your partner. Like I'm talking about like it represents other people too. Like when I
siblings,
first started learning, yeah, just friends you're really close to. Honestly, like in astrology, there's like two different houses that refer to like the types of friends you have. The 11th is like more people you know on a casual basis because like I don't know why that is, but I have to understand that more too. But and then also the seventh house, which is like everything else in between. So like from the people you are like deeply and madly in love with to like important business partnerships to like people that like you just are going to clash butt heads with. So for some reason, like all of that, all of those relationship dynamics are covered by that house. But yeah, like I have a lot of other friends who are astrologers. It's funny because like there's people who I very much respect that have like written lots of books and stuff like that. But it's hard to be really successful at that, at least in terms of like the monetary gain you can get. So they make a lot of money. Or they make their living through doing stuff like I do, which is like giving consultations, which are probably better in quality, and like also so you just send them an email and you're like, hey, I'd like to have a reading with you, and like they get back to you and I'm like, wow, like I didn't know it was so easy to reach you. Like you have like 10 books and like a YouTube channel, and to think that your main source of income is derived from like doing stuff like this, gosh. Like how many clients do you have to have? It's scary. There's also another creepier branch of astrology. I shouldn't say creepy, but like it's just more like it's called horary astrology. And basically like what you do is if you have a question that's really important to you, meaning like one that's like super stressing you out and you don't know like what type of decision to make, like you can cast a chart and you look to where the planets are to help you answer that question. And like in some cases, like you can even get a good idea of a timing of like when things are going to happen. And so I've done that a couple times for me, like over the past few months when I had some like really traumatic, like just like stuff happen and I didn't know what to do. And I would look at it and I'm like, that can't be right. Like that doesn't seem at all like what how I'm perceiving it. But like I saw it play out and I'm like, okay, so that's proof that this works if you know what you're doing with it, but on a more basic level, like just the art of reading people's natal charts, like their nativity and like their solar return, it's more of like a therapy. I see it more like a therapy type of thing, and just like understanding your soul's purpose, which makes it sound like very dramatic. But I don't know, like I feel like it's just another tool for getting to know yourself better, and like knowing, like it's kind of healing too, because it makes you realize that like some circumstances you can't really like avoid. You can kind of just prepare yourself for them better. It helps you be more accepting of just certain themes in this life that you're like, why me, like why, like is it me, like was I the person that like caused all this? And no, it's more like, again, this idea of karma as being just like a theme in your life that's important for the development of your soul that you have to go through. And I know that kind of ascribes to it some sort of potential higher purpose that might not be there, like, because you can't really measure it. But like when you think about how like you've tried your best to avoid certain circumstances and you still had to suffer something, it makes you feel more capable of dealing with it, because you're like, hey, I've been through the same thing before. I'm probably going to have to go through it again, because like my birth chart has these certain signatures that point to this being a theme I have to work through. And maybe there's meaning in that. Like maybe there's a way I can help other people. Maybe there's something to it that like that's beyond my own understanding, but at least I know that I can deal with it. So anyway, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is very interesting, and like I said,
Yeah.
and seeing that I went into it with an open mind, which
You
is
know, I'm really
interesting
glad
enough.
you did. I feel I attribute that to your Mercury being in the open-minded sign of Aquarius. So,
Makes super nervous. Makes, like I said, makes me super nervous though. Which you know, you think of those dates, but you try to put them in the back of your head now because now it's going to creep up. I
well,
mean,
you know, honestly, I feel like okay, like you might not know what it is until it gets closer. And like honestly, for me, like um I there's other time lord techniques and other predictive techniques that like will tell you a certain date, and sometimes I just look at it and I forget about it, and then like I look at it again and I'm like, shoot, like should I have avoided that? And like because that's sometimes how I view certain things that I feel like are about to happen. And there's a lot of good like YouTube astrologers out there that kind of talk about how to deal with more difficult transits or more like when you know you're about to come into a difficult period of your life, how like you know how to deal with that. And I know that people would rather go into it with like I don't want to know like what's going to happen next, and like that's okay too. But like if you were meant to find something out, then you're going to find it out, and then you're also going to be able to learn how to run from it or deal with it, you know? So I've been trying to take that same outlook, but there's like also times where I'm like too scared to look. I'm like, what kind of year am I going to have? Oh my God, yikes. So, but I
you said
feel
what
like I
kind of beer
find
you
better.
have?
Huh?
You said what kind of beer you'll have?
Oh, like what kind of, well, I said
Oh,
year, but why not beer? I actually don't really drink still. So I recently got into liking Moscow mules, but only because they're like available around the holidays. I don't even have like the copper mugs or anything. But it turns out I just really happen to like ginger ale, and something about like having like a citrusy thing in there and like vodka, which you can barely taste anyway, is probably why I like it so much. Like I just like ginger. I don't know. but
yeah.
but yeah, like sometimes you like I'm sure some people look at stuff that's coming up and feel like, oh, maybe I ought to have a drink for this. Um but yeah, with charts and stuff, like and again, I have like a lot of close friends that are in in my same line of work, if you want to call it that. And usually like what we'll do is I'll say something like, do you want to swap readings? Because like I'm like if it's something that gives you a lot of anxiety, like it's best if you have someone else who can be more objective, interpret it for you. Because if it's something like if you have a lot of anxiety regarding something, you're trying to seek guidance from the planets or the universe or whatever you want to call it, like it's harder to look at it with an objective lens. You just start reading all your own anxieties into the situation, and that's not helpful to you. Like again, like if you know that you're about to face something difficult, it doesn't help to focus on stuff that you're fearful of. Like it's like better to label those types of things and like okay, like this is obviously something I might have to deal with. How can I best mitigate that? And a good friend, like someone who's talented at that and also has like a bit of empathy is maybe the right person to go over that with you. And I find sometimes too, because like there's a lot of believe it or not, there's like a fairly thriving social network of like other astrologers who kind of like use charts for study practice. Like they'll talk about like, okay, so what does this mean? And like they'll go over all of like the literature that they've read on it and like discuss it and that kind of thing. And where was I going with that? But basically, like there's all sorts of people who are willing to weigh in with like their opinions on it. And I find that sometimes there are people that get so excited about their abilities to read that they like forget that like they're dealing with people's actual problems. So sometimes it's just like you don't want to just go out there and then like expect that people are always going to tell you something that's helpful or is sensitive to the situation. And that's a big learning experience too, is that like you might go in with like a certain expectation of like what you're about to hear, or like no expectations at all, and still feel like let down by your own expectations that you didn't know you had. So that's like a saying I came up with recently, is that like relationships are like a good way to find out how people can let you down with expectations you didn't know you had. like I just sometimes constantly find myself disappointed because I'm like, why? Like, but that was something I had in my own head about like how I wanted things to go, and like I didn't know that was something that I didn't know that was an expectation that I had. And like most disappointments are caused by people failing to meet an expectation that you had, and sometimes and like you just didn't happen to know you had it. And it makes you learn a lot about yourself and what's important to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know, like I said, and I've enjoyed doing the chart readings, and honestly, like I said, it definitely you. I will just definitely try to not say take it with a grain of salt, but just try to not get over consumed with it, because that is a very easy thing to do.
Yeah, well, you do have a strong Mercury, and again, like I said, like people with strong Mercury tend to, like, not only are they really good at thinking, it's like they're too good at thinking. Like they're too good at, and like you, like there is such thing as too much of a good thing. So
Yeah, as
anyway.
soon as you said the overthinking, like, yep, that's me.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what's so cool about it, is that like even when you feel like your friend knows you pretty well, like there's always like parts of you that you didn't think people picked up on. And that's what makes people feel so vulnerable, or at least other astrologers, when they're sharing a chart. Especially like if you're just used to sharing it with like close acquaintances, or just, people who are fairly like they have a lot of experience with reading it, so they know like what would be useful to tell the person. Because like, I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, but not all of it is going to necessarily be helpful. And like on top of that, like not all of it is going to be stuff that you resonate with. And a chart reading isn't good if it doesn't help. Like, one, it doesn't help the person that it's geared towards, if there's stuff in there that's not particularly flattering. And I also don't feel it's helpful if like you can see stuff in there, but it doesn't resonate with that person at all. Like it just kind of goes over their head, and it doesn't lead to greater self-awareness, because like you still have to feel like you can relate to something, like before you get to the point where you're self-aware, if that makes sense. So yeah, like sometimes I feel weird about sharing my chart just with like other astrologers, like even if I know they're fairly good at what they do, because like I just know there's always like that, there's nothing worse than feeling woefully misunderstood somehow. Like when someone says something about you that you feel like you could partially resonate with, but you feel like has you down so wrong. Like it just causes a lot of self-doubt and like anxiety, and like that's something I really want to avoid. But I also try to just be honest if I feel like I see something that like, not that I'd be concerned about, but like, just something that, like based on all the other stuff I've read, seems to point in a direction that you might want to be aware of. So I never leave that out, because, it's just good to tell people how you really feel about things if you can help it. Yeah.
yeah, and that I'm definitely glad for that, because just being able to do that, it does shed a little more light. The next thing I want to do is, since there is sports in the title, I
Oh my
wanted to
gosh, I'm not ready for this.
so this is something idea I was thinking of doing with you last time, but again, didn't think about it at the time. But now I'm thinking again, your skill on playing, doing HCASC, and recall memories, which is basically, it's amazing that how crazy the brain is when it comes to recalling facts, even the most inane ones, even like the discussion of graham crackers and,
Oh man.
as you mentioned earlier. So I decided
Yeah,
to go
yeah.
this.
Sure,
uh,
let's go.
so I am going to give you. We're doing sports trivia,
Okay.
uh, and these are 7 questions, and a couple of them have extra secondary questions with them. So about, looking at the list, 1, 2, 3, 4 have bonus questions. I guess a part 2 to each question. So whenever you're ready, I would play some background music, but I don't know if it end up getting flagged eventually for trademark infringement.
Oh
I
my gosh. Yeah, like
was gonna play like "Who Wants to Be a Millionaire," like fastest finger music, just to sort of add up the
try
drama.
not to
But
demonetize yourself if you can help it.
oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
demonetizing would start with being monetized first. Okay, here we
You'll get
go.
there.
This is the first question, and this is the category of basketball.
Okay.
Number 1, who is the all-time leading regular season scorer or all-time leading scorer in NBA history?
I think it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Is that right?
That is correct.
Like I was thinking about Kobe first. I think he's like somewhere on that list. But rest in peace, Kobe. I miss you.
Yeah. That was the day that happened, that was just so strange. I just say that we were coming back from church, and I had walked the dog, had not looked at my phone. My phone was in my pocket, and then somebody I see on Facebook saying, Kobe Bryant died. And I'm like, okay, because you always try to trust and verify that, crazy people on the internet making all these speculations, like, they talk about Sinbad had died like 15 times, but and then you look and oh, yeah, that's true. And that sort of like, yeah, that was not what I was expecting, And
it was really sad. I heard he was such an amazing dad, and like that breaks my heart so much. Like to just know that he has a family that misses him, and and he had such a close relationship with his daughter, too. That's so sad.
Don't want you to get too emotional there. I mean, because really, honestly, when you think about it, somebody who barely, still our age group. I don't even think he was maybe 40, maybe a little over 40. I think he might have been about 41, if anything.
Oh my gosh!
And there was plenty left to, plenty left in his career. He was going to do 41. Yes, he was going to do a lot more. He was already looking into, getting into writing more and doing so much other stuff. And unfortunately, I would just see it like this. Unfortunately, when your number is up, and no matter whether it's fair or not, it's always a tough thing to deal with. And, it's going to happen to all of us eventually at one point, which now I've made it gloomy.
It's all right.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
No worries. Here's the follow-up bonus. Mm-hmm. What 2 teams did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar play for?
I remember he was with the Lakers for a long time. And then he was first he was with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yep, Milwaukee Bucks. He is still the all-time leading scorer in Milwaukee Bucks history. And he only played there for like 6 seasons. Just like 69 or 70 to 74, 75. Okay, the next category, number 2. This is football.
Okay.
What team or teams have the most Super Bowl wins?
Okay, the Patriots, obviously. And I think they're tied with like the Steelers or something.
Yes. Yes, they are. They both have 6. Okay, so you're 3 for 3. Let's go on to number 3. This is hockey. Okay, within 15 goals. How many career NHL goals, we'll say regular season, did Wayne Gretzky have? Within 15. So that gives you a little bit of a spear there. I'll give you a little bit of a range.
I want to say almost like 1,000. Is that close? Maybe.
I'll take a direct number.
How many was it?
He had 894.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so he was 6 short of 900, and I think that might be passed in a few years if Alexander Ovechkin stays healthy and doesn't have any more contact with people who have COVID. Here's a bonus. What was Wayne Gretzky's first professional team?
Well, he's Canadian, I think. So let me think. The Racers?
The Indianapolis Racers of the World Hockey Association. He only played 8 games before the team went belly up, and then they sold him to Edmonton, where everybody knows where he played.
He looks really good. Have you seen pictures of him lately? Like, it's
I
not.
have not.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people must just age really well, which is probably an argument for me to start working out, because some people just look really good, and like there's no good reason for them to be looking like that. Like he doesn't even look like he's had any work done or anything. So,
and especially being out in LA, you think that's the that's the capital of facelifts and plastic surgery.
yeah, like, you know what? Now another show comes to mind when you asked me that Netflix question. Somehow I got really into, what is that show? Shoot, not Botched, not Botched. Is it? Oh. Yeah, it's Botched. I got into Botched, and like, so it's like a lot of people who come in with their really messed up, like plastic surgeries that went wrong, and then like there's these 2 characters that are very like funny and engaging, and they're not characters, they're actual surgeons, and they fix it for them, and I'm like so happy for them because they feel happy now. But anyway.
So far, you are 5 for 5. Well, let's say 4 for 5 because you were sort of in the neighborhood with the Gretzky thing. This is baseball. Who has the most World Series titles?
The Yankees.
Yes. Now the bonus. How many?
I don't know.
I know that is no. There is no range on this. There is no within so and so many titles.
I want to say they have almost 30. Is that close?
27. 27.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As Duffman would say, close enough. Tennis now. In the open era of women's tennis, who has the most singles Grand Slam titles? I know it's a little iffy with some of the language there, but when they started having the open era, and it was more than just amateurs.
Probably Serena, if it's not Venus.
Which one is your answer?
Serena. I'll go
23.
Serena.
She has 23. She's one behind the all-time record, which is 24. And
who's
that? Margaret Court.
Whoa.
If you read about Margaret Court, that is a very interesting story. I'll just leave it at that, leaving biases and other things out. So far, you're still going. Oh, I already gave away the bonus that she had 23. So, okay. What city is the Basketball Hall of Fame located in?
I think it's in Massachusetts somewhere, but now I don't remember where it was. Where is it, Earl?
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
The game was founded in a YMCA in Springfield, Massachusetts, with awesome. With the peach baskets.
We should do chicken wings next time.
Wait, virtual chicken. Oh gosh, the virtual chicken wings. Oh no, I'll leave that to my brother. I tell my brother I won't do chicken wings. I'll do something else ridiculous. I mean, we were talking about cheeses, but chicken wings. If I have to break out the chicken wings, that should be a huge pool of a Zoom call video that would get a whole bunch of people on here, because that would be hilarious. And one more. Washington Mystics player Elena Delle Donne was a basketball star at what university? Hint, she is from this state.
Oh, Delaware.
Yeah. University of Delaware.
I see.
Well, the hint was she was from the state that she starred in high school, but close enough. Same thing. It's from this state, but yeah, definitely.
That's such a cute name to have. Like, she sounds like she's meant to be famous.
It's crazy. I mean, like, her family, they own a lot of real estate, so it's like Delle Donne residential. I mean, tons of stuff. They own like probably properties where malls would be and things like that. You can't go anywhere in the state of Delaware, well, northern Delaware, without seeing that.
That's pretty cool. I'm so happy for her. That sounds like a charmed life.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I mean, wow, we zoomed through this and all the chart readings. I'm trying to think anything else. Anything new going on with you? I know you mentioned earlier you moved into a new house, but
let me think. Not really. Like, I've just been focusing on like, I think I told you in the last conversation we had that I was really into embroidery. So I've been thinking of like opening up my Etsy shop because I just have so much stuff now, and I've been so shy about like trying to sell it. Um, I think like earlier on in my like when I started it, like I just never felt like anything was good enough. But I feel like I'm at a point in my skill level where I feel more confident about what I have to offer. So one of these days, because like a lot of my friends have Etsy shops now too, and I'm like I'm gonna fit in. and, so like it's just been one of my goals is to like feel like I have like pieces of art that I can share with people that I really liked making. So, but beyond that, like nothing else is new. Like I think I told you what like weird shows I was watching, and like it's funny because like I feel like I watch so many, and like I also watch like a lot of stuff on YouTube, but like just not as much stuff on Netflix that feels like conversation topic worthy.
What are some ways that people can reach out to you and maybe get in contact with you a little more after seeing this episode and seeing your first episode, which we've already put out in the comments of people if they want to see?
You know what? I'll have to get started on that. Like, how about like I start my Twitter account or something, and then people can reach out to me that way. Because last time I didn't have any real contact info for you either. But I have an Instagram. It's at Little Mermaids Art. So that's where I post like pictures of like the stuff that I made on my embroidery machine. So that's one way people could reach out to me.
Okay. Again, I really appreciate it. And for everybody who's been watching, I saw everybody coming through here and there. Got a couple, got a like there. So I really appreciate it. What we'll do is we'll finish this conversation off air. And for everybody who's been watching, thanks so much. And we'll be doing this again, and we'll have a few episodes and interviews going on next week. I'll show them out on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Again, for my guest Meredith Esguerra, I am Earl Holland saying thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll end this with the outro again. And again, thanks a lot, and we'll continue this conversation off air.
All right. It was nice talking to you.